Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session, Achieving Precision Marketing at Scale During a Global Pandemic. Thank you so much, everyone, for registering and joining the session. We've got an amazing speaker lineup led by Steve. Just as a couple of quick housekeeping rules, today's session, we want to make it as interactive as possible. So please feel free to submit any questions you may have in the Q&A function at the bottom. And I know the speakers will endeavour to get through as many of them as possible. If there are any kind of questions that we're not able to get through, we will feel free to kind of reach back out to either myself or Steve, and we'll be more than happy to kind of get those. More than happy to kind of get those answered. With that, I'll hand over to our very capable moderator, Stephen. Steve, I'll let you take it from there.
All right, thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm really looking forward to a productive and interesting discussion today on some topics that I think are of great interest to marketers everywhere. My name is Steve Koplik. I'm the Global Sales and Services Leader for HCL Unica. Unica is one of the world's leading marketing resource management software solutions. And I'm joined by four very distinguished panelists. Rather than me try and summarize their experience, I would like each of them just to introduce themselves, just explain their background and their role. And we'll start off with Nicholas, please.
Thank you very much, Steve. So I'm Nicholas. I'm calling from France. I've been in marketing for over 35 years. Biggest role in marketing was CMO of Sony Europe, based in Berlin, Germany. Today, I'm a consultant on one side of my business, and on the other side, I'm a marketing director for a company called Affinity Initiative, where we use AI, low-code, no-code type of platforms to help companies use AI for all marketing type of campaigns and to be more efficient in terms of precision marketing.
Perfect, thank you. Gino, how about if you could introduce yourself, please?
Hello, a great pleasure to be here. I am currently the Chief Marketing Officer of Allianz in the Philippines. Prior to that, I was head of region for the marketing function as well. Right prior to that, I was the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer based out of Toronto in Canada. Been with Allianz for 15 years, insurance for 20 altogether. And essentially the topics that we are going to cover are very much within the advancements that we're bringing forward within the Allianz Group.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Ketty, how about if you could introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Steve. Hi, everyone. Ketty Trivedi, currently Chief Marketing Officer at Prudential Group Insurance. I have been in financial services for the last 23 years, started my career with KPMG Consulting, and then spent a lot of time at Morgan Stanley across investment management as well as asset management. And over the last 13 years, have been at Prudential, and currently, operating as their CMO within the group insurance organization, which is really focused on institutional customers and participants across life, disability, and supplemental health products.
Okay,
so
perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Heather, if you could introduce yourself also, we can get started.
Thanks, Steve. Heather Martin. I'm a Senior Director of Strategic Marketing at NRG. I've been in marketing probably 21 years, 15 of those at NRG. A little bit of background, NRG is one of the largest energy and home services providers in the US and Canada. Our entire team focuses on essentially our NRG corporate brand, as well as our acquisition and customer experience initiatives for our business segment.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think everyone, you can see we've got a very experienced and distinguished panel today to take us through this discussion. And as Paul said, the focus of today's discussion is on how do we continue to do effective marketing in this global pandemic. We're going on 2 years now where we're seeing the effects that this has had on the marketing function worldwide. Certainly, it looks like the things are continuing as far as uncertainty. And as marketers, we've got to be able to adjust our value proposition to be able to market to folks effectively, not just to get the message out, but to be able to close business, to convert opportunities. So one question I'd like to start off with for the panel, we need, I think, to just have an open discussion. We have a lot of interest from the audience in terms of how are we able to more effectively leverage content, all this technology that we have. Nicholas, you mentioned AI, machine learning. How can we leverage all that technology to create value propositions that will help us all as marketers to get our message across in a very crisp and clear manner? So Gino, how about if you could lead us off with this one?
Most certainly. For us at Allianz, our key messages are with the acronym CSG, so customer centricity, sustainability, and growth. And the C and the S actually lend itself very much to the boom or the rise in technology usage. On one hand, there is the increase of technology or data in terms of making sure that the messages are very much relevant. It's all about keeping things simple, keeping things easy. And one thing we always highlight as well is the consistency of our messaging. On the S side or sustainability, there are many things that digital lends itself again to, in terms of making sure that the messages and the communication are relevant and immediately received by the audience. So that is how we approach things. Timeliness is extremely important, and as mentioned, ease and relevance as well.
Okay, thank you. And just for the audience members, if you have a question or you'd like to post a topic, please just hit the Q&A button there, and we'll definitely address those questions as time permits. Heather, I wanted to see if you had any perspectives on this first question as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, overall, I mean, as everyone has seen, consumer tolerance for, a lot of effort has really become non-existent in the last couple of years, obviously. At NRG, we, have very complex products and services. And so the ability for us to simplify those from a marketing perspective is paramount. So, kind of over the last 24 months, we've taken quite a few steps to really simplify the way our content is consumed. We've ungated most of our content. We've implemented personalization across our mobile experiences, our web experiences, our email experiences. We're continuing to collect data beyond just contextual data and really use metadata to inform that, and also have really shifted kind of our marketing activities. So as media consumption patterns have changed over the last couple of years, with people being online at different times, we've shifted media strategy to really focus on, on times, and essentially shifting a lot of display, simplifying our display ads. People don't want to see a lot of noise anymore. So we've got to get to the point quicker and more effective. And so those are a couple of things that we've done. And we obviously are continuing to, utilize technology to keep that over time, right? So our plans over the next couple of years are continuing to build on those things.
Okay, all right, thank you, Heather. And that's actually a great lead into the second topic. You mentioned we're going on 24 months now being in this situation. And certainly, I think all of us have seen a huge leap in the consumer's acceptance of digital channels as opposed to traditional physical channels. So that obviously has a lot of implications for converting our offers and promotions to actual sales. But to do that, as you just said, it's very difficult to do that, to deliver a smooth experience for the customer in a way that suits not just their channel preferences, but time of day, as they are coming in and out of our websites and looking at offers, not just during traditional business hours, but it could be any time of the day or night, just based upon what's most convenient for them. Nicholas, I think that might be a good one for you to just give us your perspective on what you're seeing from your perspective in terms of being able to engage with customers across all these digital channels and to make that experience smooth for the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, I think at the beginning of your first question, you said, the point before was really how you spread the message. I used to call it, my earlier days, spray and pray. You spread the message and you pray that somebody will get your message. Today, this doesn't work anymore. Likely, thanks to technology and tools, we have precision marketing, and this is all what we've been talking about today. And precision marketing allows us to have real-time information and the ability to react and test in real time anything basically you would like to test, right? So you can use, we mentioned AI, I know it's, everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and everything, but that's really the way you can manage so much data and enjoy after that really doing what you do best, which is as a marketer, being creative, know your customer, and being able to target your customer at the right time, on the right platform, and with the right tool. And this is what we see. I don't think we would be talking today about precision marketing if we hadn't had COVID. COVID has helped this transformation. I know a lot of people talk about digital transformation, but it's not only about digital. It's obviously has a lot to do with tools and digital tools, but it's also about mindset. And so customers have changed their behavior. It's for us marketers. I mean, that's been the game for 35 years for me, at least, is making sure that at least I evolve with the customers, preferably ahead of the customer, but at least not being late compared to what my customers want. And technology is here to help me with that.
Okay. Yeah, and Katie, I'm smiling because I think you have a perspective on this as well from your role that as Nicholas said, the customers have really changed the way they consume content, not just channel preferences, but the way that their behavior patterns have changed. I'm wondering if you're seeing similar developments from your perspective.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the terminology of spray and pray. I think we've heard that a lot.
Right.
But yes, it's so evident, I think, over the last maybe 18 to 20 months with just the pivot, right, in terms of customer behavior. And I think it was Heather that said, used the word tolerance. That's so apt. What we're starting to see specifically from a financial services insurance perspective is that not just the customer in general, but like when you look at specific age segments, if we look at customer segments, whether, the customer segments themselves are evolving. So in terms of how they're actually managing the information, managing the content, where are they even interacting or engaging with content has changed. And I think the level of personalization or our ability to really be more focused in terms of how we're really laser targeting them, in terms of really serving up the content in the most simplified manner is extremely crucial. And we use the terminology around moments of truth in financial services, or more so in insurance, which is, that when you think about a B2B customer, you're onboarding or driving implementation of a plan design. But when you think about a participant, an individual customer, they're really they need to understand, they need to generate awareness about a financial product, and then they need to enroll. But it doesn't stop there. What's critical right now, I think what we're starting to see with change in behavior is, how are you keeping the customer for life? So what is the service experience that you're able to really afford and award to them? And that's where I think you're starting to see the behavior patterns really evolve. And our ability to really understand those behavior patterns has been instrumental in this time. And then to continually reapply that, because it's not that behavior stays, it tends to evolve with time. So I would say customer segmentation is at the heart of everything that most of us, I think, in the industry are focused on, and that's evolving too.
Okay, and are you seeing the way that you do segmentation, is that changing, or are the segments evolving? Are you having to go deeper into subsegments or micro subsegments? What's your experience there?
Yes, I think that, the segments have clearly evolved. When we look at micro segments, you look at, if you look at the first layer of just demographic data, then you look at psychographic data. What's interesting is cohort assessments. So as we think about data science, the ability for us to understand AI, infuse AI, and I'll give you an example within our business, which is, who are the individuals that are actually applying for claims? What are the claims behaviors? Is it maternity claims versus disability claims? Is it tied to supplemental health? How are you understanding these patterns, and then further, mapping this to health integration? So I think that those are some of the things that you're starting to say that you've gone beyond the demographic and psychographic assessment, but now you're looking at different cohorts to say, how are these individuals behaving? And then what are their lifestyle patterns? And that's interesting because now as a marketer, it starts telling you, well, how should you be engaging with these individuals? Speaking to them about the product does not make sense, right? You have to talk to them about the benefit and why is that benefit going to matter to them in the stage of life that they're in. So I think that as segments evolve, the way we approach these customers has evolved entirely.
Okay. No, that's a good point, right? And it's you're trying to sell a product, but the customer, that insurance customer, is trying to deal with a life situation or trying to plan for something that they might be concerned about in the future. So yeah, very good. Okay. Well, another area that I wanted to cover today, and we had some questions in advance on this, is the technology that we all are using today to do this very precise marketing effort and generate some efficiency. I guess there's hope that if we're using technology to help us be more efficient, that it will actually allow the marketers, those of us in marketing, to focus on what we do best, which is to, as Ketty was saying, to be more creative about the way that we understand our customers, the way that we serve them. So Gino, I thought you might have, with your worldwide experience, you are familiar with markets in many different countries. Maybe give us your experiences. Is all of this technology, is it actually generating the benefits that we expect to allow your folks to be more efficient, to spend time actually understanding the customers?
Well, I'll pick up on what my colleagues had shared. I mean, as Ketty pointed out, first of all, insurance is a product that our customers do not necessarily wake up and seek. And I think one of the clear changes that we've seen is that there's most certainly greater awareness and desire to help oneself in terms of protection and health, more specifically because of the pandemic. Picking up on what Nicholas mentioned, there is a lot of opportunity that have been brought about by the pandemic. With regard to your question in terms of technology, it's pretty much the same things that we've been using all these years, except there is, again, that greater awareness and acceptance for these tools. We're finding that in our prospecting and sales initiatives, customer events, and so on and so forth, our clients are much more accepting of the technology. It tends to be that insurance is a very much a face-to-face product that is sold in person, and across different countries that tends to be the case. But more and more, if you may, some of my colleagues have said that the pandemic was the great equalizer in that regard, that because of this increased awareness and greater acceptance of tools that are very much online, it really created that sort of perfect storm in a positive way in terms of insurance gaps being met and people having their financial services needs met. So that's been a good thing from our experience.
Yeah, very good.
If I may just add, I think you guys are in the perfect market right now, because fintech is really an area where people are expecting to have the same customer experience that they would have with Amazon or anything, any online experience, and they would like to have that with banks and finances. I work a lot with banks and finances here in Europe, and I can see that the need is really there, where people think, yes, before we used to go to a place and meet an insurer, so he will explain to us all types of available tools or services that they can provide. Whereas now, basically, and technology helps as well, is like, you're a 19-year-old starting your life, you're not married, you don't have any kids and everything. It's going to be totally different than a 50-year-old who already has 3 kids and that he or she needs to put to college, right? And so the data, the historical data, is going to be very important. And I see, as you rightfully said, Gino, I see that customers are now okay with technology, especially if that technology makes it easier for them. So I was talking earlier on about low code, no code type of platforms. because as soon as you start talking about AI, and AI, I see one of the questions, AI is definitely not the only additional component. Obviously, there are many others to have a precision marketing. But as soon as you start talking about AI, people start thinking about data scientists, people start thinking about, a lot of investment to make it happen. But you also have the possibility to use tools for any type of companies, small ones that don't have any IT staff, for example, but that can use tools like, as I mentioned before, low code, no code type of tools, which are easier to use and which can give you a lot of information about data, because it doesn't use a lot of data. And that's what I see today with a lot of my customers, is they are eager to get more tools, and they are eager to change the way they do business, especially in fintech.
Mm-hmm. Yep, no, that's a very good point. And I think to what you just said, Nicholas, we had a question that came across about precision marketing. So this person does not have experience with that term. They certainly understand predictive marketing that we've done for years. But the question is, could we explain to this person in the audience what precision marketing is and how it's differentiated from predictive marketing that we've done in the past? Do you want to take that one, Nicholas?
Sure.
Okay.
To me, precision marketing, it's really getting the desire or the needs of marketers and consumers together, which will at least make it. Will give prior. I'm sorry, I don't plan that question, so I'm trying to look for my words here. But it'll be more relevant for both products and consumers. Meaning, like, the marketer will have the need to optimize the customer experience, and the consumers will have the need to ensure that at least the messages he gets are really right for them, as I mentioned before, at the right time, for the on the right platform, and with the right tool. So it's how can you make I mentioned before the old spray and pray. We are going totally the opposite from that, where actually the message we're going to deliver is what I expect at the right time. So which means that in terms of sales, because it's very much related to sales, in terms of sales, I'm going to reach my customer really at the right time, and offering him the right service or tool or solution, so that I know that there's a higher chance that that customer will buy when I reach him, rather than sending a message and again hoping that one person, sorry, when I say guy, it's general, one person will get it and will hopefully buy. Here we're really going for precision, and that's why that's how I would define it.
Okay.
And sorry to add on to what Nicholas is saying too. I think the dynamics continue to shift in the way that there has to be a really deep understanding of funnel dynamics, right? People are consuming content differently in their buying journeys. There's a lot of need for generating mind share at the very top of the funnel, but that's not necessarily the same content that you deliver when they're in the consideration and intent phases, right? And so I think most marketers nowadays have got to really understand within their own organizations and their data what the dynamics of their funnel looks like, right? And how do we really target that precisely and effectively in a simplistic way?
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, Heather, we had a question that came in about data. You mentioned that they're asking what data are you using? So we talk about the customer experience is very important, but in terms of targeting, what's your experience with NRG on the data that you're finding is having the most positive effect?
Off mute. So we have data from various different sources, many CRMs, kind of internal type data that we have that's not necessarily from the CRM, but we're using kind of demographic data. We're using real-time insights that are coming in from our call centers and our online chat, as well as our different online surveys. And then we're also using behavioral patterns. So we use the Adobe suite of products. So all of our personalization is run by Adobe Audience Manager, Adobe Experience, Adobe Target. So we're essentially sucking in data from various different sources and creating personalized experiences, whether that be online or through, our lead generation efforts, our lead nurture efforts, customer email communications, et cetera.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. And just again, just expanding upon that a little bit, another question that we wanted to cover. When you look at a wider perspective, let's say over the past 20 years, we went from what Nicholas talked about, spray and pray, the old just blanket mass marketing. We had in banking, we had the mass, sort of the general medium-sized market of retail customers. We've clearly gone, I've heard this theme from all four of you, that we're going to much more personalized methods. Some of that is related to the data that we have, but the question or the topic is for the next decade, so we're looking back 20 years, for the next 10 years, what do we think it's going to look like for marketers, and how are we going to take the data that many of you are or you have access to today from all these third-party sources? How are we going to take advantage of that and get even more precise? Because I do think I see from our Unica customers that there is a real hunger to get even more precise. The challenge is how do we do that? And in your opinion, are customers actually looking for that? And Ketty, maybe we could ask you for your perspective on this one.
Sure. So as we think about just data segments, I'll give you some real examples in terms of what we're actually trying to do with that. And I'll give you an example across institutional customers. So in the insurance segment, we refer to them as employers or producers or brokers, and then we talk about the participants. So as we think about customer segments, and the way we apply data is we look at employer segments to say, if there is a specific employer segment, traditionally, we would have looked at it by book of business, profit, revenue generation, and industry segments to say, are these employers probably ideal for the life product, for disability product, or for supplemental health products, or certain capabilities? What we're now looking at is, given that we have a lot of data on each of these employer segments, as well as we have, we've been nurturing their entire book of business for the last several years, we tend to look at premium potential. So we tend to look at, if we understand premium potential, how are we calculating that by multiplying this book of business average participation rate for a product by the number of employees that they may have. So for example, if an employer has 1 million employees, whereas another employer has 50,000 employees, how are we looking at some of that, and where are those opportunities? So you want to look at the employer book, you want to look at target segments and annualized premium per person for that product. Okay. So we tend to then provide that level of data to our sales teams, and then that informs them to say, here's what you want to go out to an employer and pitch the value proposition or pitch a specific capability. So that's one layer of segmentation. The end result for this is, how are you getting that employer to adopt a new product or a new capability for their employees as part of their benefits? When we talk about this for the participant or the individual, that's interesting for us, because now you're getting an individual to actually apply and enroll in a specific product. And what's key here mostly is that we not only look at their demographic data, their behavior data over the years, the experience data, as they're coming onto a platform and as they're engaging with a platform, but we also look at claims data. So mapping people like me, for example, and mapping that level of information, whether it's by segment, whether it's by their kind of behavior. We look at, coverage levels, salary data, and all of that is basically kind of assembled in a cohort. And then you'll be able to kind of really laser focus and create programs that may really drive the best outcomes for those individuals. So again, various different ways of looking at it.
Right. Okay. Yep. And we've got another question that I think there's a lot of interest in this specificity, like the real world example that you gave us there, Ketty. So this question is the specific criteria that we're using to segment these potential audiences and to rank them, to prioritize them as well. I assume that means in terms of potential revenue generation or multi-product adoption for insurance. So the question, and Gino, maybe you could give us your perspective on this one from Allianz. What are the criteria that you look at and when you're doing the segmentation in terms of ranking those customers, the cohorts or the subsegments in priority order? And then I guess there's implications for how much marketing resource and product resource that you'll actually put against those based on the priorities. So maybe your perspective on that one.
Yeah, I saw the question on the chat function. No experience selling trucks, unfortunately. I'm an insurance person through and through. But, in answering your question, and I think my colleagues have spoken to this, it's really the importance of using the data that is available in order to get to the end result, which is ultimately to get the client to identify himself or herself as a customer and say, yes, yes, please, that is good for me. And so, I think Nicholas dabbled into the subject. It really is as simple as it gets. How that relationship builds towards the client self-identifying and saying, yes, indeed, this is, you've reached me at the right time. I understand this, and I will avail of the product or service. In terms of what you've shared, it's everything that my colleagues had likewise spoken about: demographics, psychographics, behavioral patterns and all that. Really the scoring, as you may refer to, is dependent on which markets we're referencing. I think the one thing I might want to add is the importance of also throwing in client and customer feedback, because often we make them want to do something that we think is good for them, but ultimately what is perhaps missed is that feedback loop at the end, where the client then says, actually, I don't think this is what I wanted or what I needed. So that would be another point worth throwing in, where you have Ketty speaking of premium potential. Another version of that is really maximizing customer lifetime value. And a good way of increasing that and maximizing it really would be by way of making sure that those communication lines continue and for sure does not stop at the point of sale. Okay.
Yeah, I think that relates to this question about the attendee, that they're selling very large capital investments, right? Trucks, like $500,000 cost kind of items. So that's not an impulse buy, as they say, but it really gets into a much different way of selling. I think the question here is precision marketing applicable for those kinds of long-term capital investments that take a lot of research? They're very infrequent purchases for the most part, if it's a smaller firm, as opposed to fleet purchases. So the question is precision marketing applicable for those long-term marketing efforts? Sometimes these are journeys that take months or years to get someone to the point where they're ready to make that purchase versus impulse buys.
So yeah, I mean, I can take that one. Obviously, we have different customer segments within NRG. We have a large home business, but we also have a large commercial industrial business as well. Our C&I business has a very long sales cycles, anywhere from 3 months at the lowest, probably, and up until 24 months. So, I mean, my answer is yes to that. We use precision marketing across all of these segments. Obviously, our business customers are more complex. It's not often, obviously, the sale is not accomplished via digital methods. However, kind of back to when I was talking about around funnel dynamics, we focus a large part of our effort at all stages of the funnel, but in these types of complex deals, it's really important to really hit people at the awareness level, really understanding kind of where they're at, what they're looking for, but also be super targeted at consideration and intent, and really getting mind share, right? Being a thought leader, creating things like, webinars that are helping to inform these customers, participating in, research initiatives with with third parties, retargeting initiatives, white papers, those types of things hit at different stages of the funnel. But and precision marketing is just as important on complex sales as it is on simple sales. It's just focusing those efforts on those funnel phases and really understanding what your customers are looking for.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Yep, go ahead.
If I could just add one point, totally agree with what Heather's saying. Is really the funnel is the key. But we have to remember also that precision marketing is all about data. So it's about historical data. It's all about basically collect, process, and analyze data that we've had for many, many years. So even for a $500,000 truck, you could create, thanks to precision marketing, what we call micro moments, which would be, for example, because you've analyzed your data, you know that this particular customer or prospect has always purchased a truck after it has a number of miles, whatever, or after, the period of Christmas. I'm just, here throwing ideas. Therefore, you could create what we call micro moments, which will be that, Mr. So-and-so, we are going to create for you a week where you can get the truck at 10% off the value, whatever it could be, micro moment, or just simple, look, we have a new range of trucks coming in. Why don't you come to our garage and we'll, during that week, we will make you all test the truck, or we'll give you a customer experience like no other. And that's where precision marketing, that's why I'm totally in agreement with what Heather just said. Precision marketing can work anywhere, any segment, anywhere. The better you're going to segment, the better results you're going to get and the better ROI you will get. So even going back to your earlier question saying, what do we see in the future? It's hard to say, but rightfully you said, Steve, that your customers are asking for more precision. They're asking for more detailed in terms of their messages. And I see it, going deeper and deeper into that. So answering that question regarding the 500K truck, yes, please do try it. You have data, you've had data for a while. Even if your business is new, you still have data, and that data will help you make the sale happen.
Yep. No, we see that too with Unica, this notion of customers being on a journey, that some of these journeys are quite long and involved, certainly in financial services. I think one of the panelists mentioned this idea of moments of truth, that there are a fairly small number of events that happen in a typical person's life, whether you're talking banking or insurance or even financial markets, investment management, where like birth of a child, moving, acquiring a new house or a second home, those are the moments when people, I think, Ketty, you said that people don't sit there thinking about insurance every waking moment. There are certain events that happen in their life where they really do think about it. Having a child or a grandchild is a good example of that. So we need to be, as Nicholas says, we need to be ready to anticipate, look for the signals with all this data, the signals that might indicate this person's coming up on that type of situation. So yeah, I think that's a very good discussion, and certainly I would agree with the panel that this notion of the precision marketing applying to both, the ad hoc kind of decisions that people make on an impulse purchase versus a longer term, investment or a decision about an insurance product. I think that's extremely applicable. So, Gino, any other thoughts on the data aspects here of what you see for the next 10 years in terms of your customers looking to be more precise?
Well, I think the irony too, if I may call it that, the ironic part of the conversation is that, we are being more precise and we are using technology, but really the basics are the same. So I echo Nicholas and Heather's point that, it is as relevant for capital intensive sales processes as it is for simple purchases. And the reason for that is really that if we were to put ourselves on the other side of the fence, we've all been part of selling propositions where we were wowed by the gentleman or the lady across us. And that tends to be moments where, one, it was made very simple for us. Number two, the relevance was extremely clear. And number three, as Nicholas had pointed out, it was timely. I needed it right now, or I need it tomorrow, and there she was, or he was yesterday. So it really is, as we use technology, we can get carried away with, extreme data analysis. I think Nicholas made the point that, the best salespeople sometimes don't even have any of that, and yet they're just as successful. And so what for me is worth summarizing is that what technology has really allowed us to do is to just simply make it faster, more efficient, and therein lies the word more precise. And what we consider, though, and going back to your point, is the importance, on the other hand, of protecting client data. At Allianz, it's something that we treat very, very strongly. Data privacy or privacy is respected and protected, because ultimately, yes, there is a wealth of knowledge that comes from that, but with it comes likewise great responsibilities.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that actually is a great lead into the last question that we have. The topic we wanted to cover is with this proliferation of customer data, but also the real need, I would say, the requirement that we have to make sure we're treating that data and adhering to GDPR, that we're treating this data very carefully and being respectful of customers' privacy. How can we use that to build a holistic picture of what that customer is going through on their journey? And the question is, going forward, as we continue to try to be more precise, leverage ever more data about customers, will there be sort of a crossover point with this notion of precise marketing communications and then the customer service and experience? Do you kind of see those lines being blurred? Ketty, maybe I'd ask you for your comments on that one. It's a pretty broad topic, but it's also very significant, I think, for the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. No, we're already starting to see the lines blur. As we think about two processes, one is as the data comes into the business firewalls, right? They come through the firewalls. It's all about data ingestion. How are you enabling the data? And then how are you leveraging the data from a marketing perspective to engage with the customer? So that's the first piece. A very critical component in this is about permissioning. So as marketers, right, you can leverage the data to generate awareness, to educate the customer, to engage with them. But then when you're trying to really drive conversion, there needs to be that ability to actually ensure that you have the right permissioning guardrails in place, whether it's from the institutional customer or the individual customer. What's interesting is that the service experience, when you're servicing a customer, there's a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you leverage the data, because it's the moment in time that you're engaging with them. But how you now take the learnings from that data or understand the behavior assessments and apply that, there are specific guardrails, and I can tell you that specifically in the insurance business or the financial services business, permissioning plays a very, very critical role. But I do see the lines already blurring. But I think it's also on the business or ourselves as the carrier to be accountable and to ensure that we keep the trust for our customers, where we're not mishandling the data. So that's a really important part. So blurring is happening, but we have to be extremely mindful of allowing the lines to blur, but not to cross.
Okay, yeah, that's very important. Yeah, because blurring does imply that you're losing, the ability to discern about different types of data, and that it's a little more forgiving, that you don't have to be quite as accurate. But I think the opposite's true. That's what you're saying, is you've got to be even more precise of interpreting all that data and making sense. And that does get to be difficult for sure. Yeah.
And I think too, I don't want to underestimate. I think there was a question around like a small business who doesn't have a lot of access to, big data. On our customer experience team, we're getting service via phone, via chat, via other avenues, and we're actually taking those types of real-time feedback and using predictive analysis to even benefit, even from an acquisition standpoint. But even if you don't have, data, there's, don't underestimate talking to your sales team, don't underestimate physically talking to customers. When customers are calling in, when you're talking to them, in person, those types of things are really important that then feed into, how you either service that customer and or acquire new customers, right? So there's a lot of data to be had beyond just big type data. So
exactly.
Okay.
You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not only big data. And I think that the question before was just regarding that, what type of solutions that we find. I mean, for me, I use a tool for all my smaller, I would say, customers that really don't want to go into this big data business, which is time consuming, and also in terms of financial requirements is pretty big. And so I use what we call a bot named Sue, which is a product that really allows you to do some iteration based on what you know best as a marketer, meaning your customers. And with those iterations, you train an algorithm, which is very simple to use. And so basically, based on the question, say, AI solution as we typically know them are in general, very large, very, expensive, whereas you can use the power of AI to do things that really are mundane for a marketer, or that in general you don't really want to do, because what you want to do is, at least as a marketer, what I like to do is be creative, like to understand, really put myself in the head of my customer. And that's why I focus on when I let the tool take all the data and tell me, this is the right time, this is the right person, this is the right message for you to send. That's I hope I answered that the person's question on that. And again, as Heather said, it doesn't have to be big data. It can be anything. And again, customer. The salespeople have been really successful up until now without all this data, because they have everything in their head. Now we're just trying to automate a little bit that in order to make it a little bit more efficient. That's all.
Yeah, I think that this person, Mike, was asking the question about for a small business. It sounds very intimidating. You're talking about big data. It implies big 7 or 8 figure investments. But
exactly,
my experience with low code, no code, it actually is. It's quite the opposite. There's a lot of data there. You just need something to kind of sift through that and get some insights.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, no, that's very helpful. Well, Heather, I just wanted to get your thoughts. Just we've covered all the questions I think that have come from the audience, but I definitely see a theme here about people wanting to understand what precision marketing really is, and is it really relevant. I think you've expressed, just from your point of view from NRG, that you've seen some real benefits there for not just to sell products to customers, but to get to understand them better, to start to develop kind of this anticipatory capability where you are able to see as they go through life stages or as their needs change. A lot of that's based on actual data that you mentioned. What are your plans? I'm not sure what your planning horizon is, if it's like 3 years or 5 years out, but maybe just your plans for continuing to expand on this precision marketing notion over the next several years, whatever your planning horizon is.
Yeah, I mean, from obviously the customer experience perspective, we're continuing to pull in all of our data from different sources. We're using predictive analysis around that, obviously, to serve our customers better, as well as to acquire new customers. We're from a marketing perspective, again, back to kind of the funnel stages, there's a lot of need and want by large customers and C-suite to not have to sift through a bunch of information. They don't typically want to go to websites, right, and look for stuff. So how do we leverage things like podcasting, LinkedIn Live? How do we start branching out our personalization efforts beyond just individual experiences into very prescriptive one-on-one experiences digitally? So those are some of the things that we're looking at. But again, it's really it's really the way you use data, right? And so it doesn't matter what the data is, it's how you use it and making sure that you're using it at the right time in the right format for that particular audience. So those are some of the things that we're looking for in the next year or so to branch out into.
Okay, very good. And Gino, wanted to ask you, we had I think a very good question here that came in about the differences in practical execution between precision marketing and personalizations. We've talked about personalization has been around for a long time. There's real-time personalization, there's hyper-personalization. I've seen kind of a movement towards that. I think some of that's related to COVID and the fact that people are just in the digital world much more than the physical. But I like that we're getting a lot of questions about kind of hard-headed, real-world type of situation. So could you maybe take us through from your point of view with Allianz on the difference in the practical execution between what we're talking about today with precision marketing and then just how we've done personalization historically?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, to be very frank, something I haven't really come across yet.
Okay.
Because at Allianz, it's not really sort of whether you call it precision marketing or personalization. You know, the point to all of this really is to make sure that our solutions are relevant to the clients that we are offering our solutions to. So my recommendation would be, instead of sort of thinking it through in this fashion, it really is about making sure that you are focused on proper execution. We had spoken about the importance of data. It's interesting, Ketty spoke of permission, whereas in some regions, like in Asia where I am currently, we're not even talking about permission, we're talking about convincing the client that it is worth giving us their digital ID. Okay. Believe it or not, some clients will still refuse to give their phone numbers or their email addresses, and that communication line isn't there. Going back to the point on execution, it is likewise important when we speak of how we execute properly, that we involve and get the buy-in of customer service staff and our sales force. A bit of emphasis on the sales force. There likewise tends to be that bit of skepticism around, what do you need this data for? And is this really going to be good for me? And so that is how I would approach the question, that instead of sort of thinking through the nuances of the difference between personalization or precision marketing, it really is about trying to get to the bottom of what you're trying to do. And ultimately, as we've said many times over, it is really about making sure that the client self-identifies. At Allianz, we call it push to pull marketing. We do dream of a day where clients do wake up and say, now is a good time to purchase insurance. And that is where we bring in simplicity, relevance, and consistency.
Okay. Yep. No, that's always been that way in financial services, right? That notion of having to, I definitely sense that theme that we're having to push customers, but as we get to know them better and anticipate what their situation is, that we might be able to anticipate that and have sort of those moments of truth where we can reach out to them and make it a really precise experience. So Ketty, I wanted to get your perspective too, just on your planning horizon, and just maybe summarize your thoughts on where you see you're going with your organizations going with precision marketing over the next several years.
Yeah, no, I mean, as we look at precision marketing, we look at it more from the point of view of how are we directing it at our existing customer in-force book of business. So that way we're encouraging, for example, brand loyalty. And for us, it's more about spurring buying behavior, because I think we all know that, I think one of my peers here said that, we don't wake up and ask or think about, we have to buy life insurance, disability, or sub-health. And the way that we're really looking at precision marketing, we're taking segmentation a little deeper down to say, when we think about market segmentation, how are we deploying techniques for breaking the market down into smaller, more specific blocks of customers with unique needs? And that's where we're starting to really take, I would say, take the advantage of the tech-enabled platforms that we've kind of invested in, which is marketing and sales enablement platforms that are coming together to say, how are we now, right, driving trigger-based, rules-based, and rules-based guidance within those engines to create personalization. So that's really amplifying the marketing. So we introduced a few pilots this year, some really interesting, great learnings on that, but that's going to be a pretty, a big focus for us as we step into 2022. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, the notion of driving segmentation down to a lower level, like the cohorts that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Your definition of cohort, is that, is it a number of people, or is it just a very detailed description of common elements that you see across a group of insureds?
It's common elements of individuals as well as institutional. So it could be industry, it could be the kind of occupation, it could be salary bands. We're starting to step away a little bit from gender because it's more about buying patterns, right? If you're starting to see, it's also engagement patterns with different kinds of channels. So you take a look at all of that, and it's interesting to see how certain cohorts react to a certain product or a capability versus another.
Okay. Yeah, and then I had to ask too about, in financial services, you always have this subsegment of the customer prospect base that just loves to do analysis, but how do you get them to finish the analysis and actually make a buying decision, right?
Yes, that's a big one for us.
Yeah.
And that's always been a big one for us, right? We call them the droppage that tends to happen through the enrollment process.
Yep.
How do we avoid that? So yeah, lots of processes put in place to help kind of, it's all about, right, the proximity to buy. How are you getting them to stop procrastinating versus actually completing the buying process? How do you simplify the whole enrollment process is a big one.
Yep. And then getting to that conversion moment. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I think we've covered all the questions that we had in the chat, and we covered our 5 questions as well. Paul, just wanted to turn it back to you for any closing comments or any additional inputs that you've had from the audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to, I suppose, take this opportunity first, in wrapping up to thank yourself, Stephen, for moderating the session, and also to our amazing panelists. I know we had quite a lot of audience questions there. We got through a lot of insights, and I'm sure if there are any kind of questions that that the audience hasn't managed to get through, I'm sure any of our speakers or Stephen will be happy to kind of answer those post session, either on LinkedIn, or feel free to kind of send those across to me, and I can forward to the panel after. Yeah, we'll be sending the recordings out to everyone post session, so please feel free to kind of share with your colleagues, and yeah, we should send that out within the next day or two. And again, thank you so much to the audience for taking part. We really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Yeah, we do appreciate everyone attending, and just Nicholas, Gino, Ketty, and Heather, thank you very much. It's just been a wonderful panel. You all have been very flexible, certainly very knowledgeable about your individual business and what you're doing with precision marketing. So thank you very much for your participation today.
Well, thank you, Steve, because it couldn't have been like that without you. So it was a great job too.
Likewise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.